Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf and to another one of these more chatty videos, and this time about writing and my writing in particular. I got the idea from a tag video that I watched over at Steve's channel, Steve Donahue. I will leave a link to his video down below. And that got me thinking about my own writing, but also in November, there's also always this event called NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. I don't know if any of you participate in that. I do sometimes, especially when it just coincides with me starting to write a new book, then it helps me, to get going, that I have to do a certain word count each day because it's 1,600 words each day that you have to complete if you want to participate successfully in NaNoWriMo, so you have 50,000 words at the end of the month. I don't know whether I'm going to do it this year. It will depend a little bit on my preparations for the new book I started to write or want to start to write, which I will talk about in a little bit. But anyway, I thought some of the questions, I will not answer all of the questions. I leave a list of the tag questions down below so you can have a look. But some of it seemed, interesting, and I was in the mood for a chatty video, so there you go. And one of the questions asked, in looking at the questions, even though I'm not answering all of them, is at what time of a day do you usually write? And sort of linked with that is another question: do you have a writing routine? And when I started writing seriously, in the sense that I really wanted to write every day, I started to write in the evening because I'm a night owl, always have been. I have major difficulties getting up in the morning, early in the morning. And when I was in high school, or certainly later in college, university, but also when I worked as a lawyer and I had to write, a brief or an oral argument, I would always do that in the evening, nighttime, when it's quiet in the office. And I thought, well, that's my time of day to work, so I will do that with writing as well. And I had to realize after a couple of months it didn't work at all for me to write in the evening. So I think it has something to do with that. When I write, I need to have a clear head in a way, as much as possible with my head. And so after a full day of doing stuff and working, and I just couldn't concentrate on writing. So I had to change my routine completely, and now I write in the morning. I do the social media stuff first, pressing emails, because otherwise that will linger in my mind. But normally after doing, all that stuff, social media and things, for maybe half an hour or an hour, then I write in the morning right away. And I don't normally have a word count. That's why NaNoWriMo is sort of forcing me to do things differently, which sometimes helps me to get started with a new book, because I only do time. So I'm not looking at how many words I achieve each day, but I have to sit and write, or at least try to write, for 2 hours minimum. Sometimes it's 3, but it's hardly ever more than 3. Certainly when I'm not preparing anymore, but when I'm actually writing. And sometimes these 2 or maximum of 3 hours, at the end I have like half a page, like 150 words. On a good day I will have maybe 2 or 3 pages, but I realized after trying out a couple of things that it works best for me to just have a certain portion of time each day to for writing, and not be focused on, I have to make this word count, I have to make this word count. I mean, like I said, NaNoWriMo is all about the word count, but it's only for a month. So I can do that in order to really, push me in the right direction. But as on a long-term basis, that's just not for me. Another question in the tag video was whether you outline your work or whether you just wing it. And I'm anally obsessive person, so I outline. I when I have an idea for a new book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, I just doodle and try to sort of get to focus on what do I want to write, especially when it's fiction, which normally comes to me more in terms of I want to write about something, and then I try to gather ideas, write that down, and then come up with a story with the characters. It never really starts for me with the character already in my head, or with a complete story in my head. It's more an idea. And of course, I'm writing nonfiction and fiction, and with nonfiction, it's the same. I want to write about, the rule of law. I wrote a book about the rule of law, for instance. So, and then I try to figure out, how do I want to approach this topic? I'm making obsessive outlines with chapters that change every day. That's how I start. And I do my thinking on paper. I always use these yellow college, I don't know whether you call it college notebook. It's, these yellow pad notebooks, and that's where I do my thinking. So when I'm still thinking about a book, once I start the actual writing, I always do that on the computer. So I'm not writing longhand and then transferring it into computer. Once this work is done, I will start typing into the computer. Another related question was something like what you hate about, or what you find most difficult. What's the hardest part of writing for you? And I think it's two things maybe that I want to mention. The first thing is sticking with it. When I have an idea, I'm all excited about this new idea, and then after a month or 2 or 3 months or half a year, I doubt whether this was such a good idea. And then it's an interesting balance. On the one hand, that you have to stick with it and not abandon a project too early, because you're a little bit bored, and it's just, a slog of writing every day, and it's 2 pages, and but on the other hand, sometimes you just have to realize it's a dead horse and you have to abandon it. I had many more ideas than books I've actually finished, and sometimes you just have to realize it's not working and I should, do something else. But on the other hand, if you never finish a project, you will never finish a book, and you will never have written a book. So it's I think one of the most difficult things to make the right choice here. And the other thing that I find really hard is editing. Especially when a book is really done and I hand it in to my publisher, to my editor, and then the first round of corrections, that's fine still, because my editor is fabulous. I publish most of my work with the Dutch publishing house, Kosei Publishing, and the editor that I have there, he has this capacity of telling you that two-thirds of the book is rubbish, but it's still worthwhile. And he is able to do that in a way that when I'm finished talking with him, that I'm all excited about all the revisions I will do. So that's not the hardest part. But when it's really done, and then you have to go, sentence by sentence, word by word, and you realize you use certain words a lot. I have a tendency in my fiction to have people nod a lot, and then you have to change that, and then you have this a second time around with sentence structure and stuff like that, and I find that really, really boring, but it's essential work. So I think the problem with that is that as an author, once you have actually finished the book, after the major revisions, when it's just down to sentence level or deleting words that you use too often, I'm done with it. And I just don't want to read it for the umptieth time again and correct it again. But of course, it's necessary work, so you have to do it. But I can't say that I'm enjoying it. Another question that I thought was interesting in that tag video was about writer's block. How do you deal with writer's block? Because that's also a question that I know a lot of writers think about, and when I talk to other writers or aspiring writers, it always comes up. And my approach is the stubborn approach. I feel that every writer has times when he or she sits in front of the piece of paper or the computer and it's just not coming. And in the beginning, when I started writing seriously, it's like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, I would always think, okay, well, today is not the day, so I'm not going anywhere, it's not coming, so I'm just stopping, and maybe tomorrow will be a better day. And after a while, I realized, at least for me, that's not the right approach, because the perfect day is never coming. So my approach, which I would, like I said, call the stubborn approach, is now that I allocated this time, like I said, to write in these 2 hours. And even if I sit in front of the computer and in the beginning there is really nothing coming, I just have to keep sitting there and type a little bit, and then you type something and you delete it, and then there's a sentence that you think, oh, that's not that bad, and then it's another sentence. So for me, it's just the stubbornness, the discipline to keep sitting and do your time. And I have had almost no day that started out this way when nothing came after 2 hours. I don't think I ever had a day like that. And even if it's only 2 sentences, that's better than none. So my approach to writer's block is just to push through, keep sitting, which is of course easier if you don't have a word count for a day. And I guess for me, that's why for me the word count thing doesn't work. The allocated time works much better for me. But everybody has to find his or her own way in order to, overcome the feeling that you're blocked, there's nothing coming. And the other question was about whether you want to become a full-time writer or whether it's a hobby. And I feel that this is, of course, everything is fine, if it's a hobby for you, that there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, I made the conscious decision like 10 years ago that I really wanted to be a writer as a profession, or that's what I do. But of course, I also realized that this is probably not going to earn me any money. So I still have a part-time jobs in order to pay the bills. And I can tell you that most writers, unless they are hugely successful, do that. I mean, if you're lucky, you have a profession, you teach writing, so it sort of fits with writing, but I don't really think it's important. For me, it's more important that I don't have to earn money with my writing. I know that I can pay my bills even if I don't publish a book for 10 years. And if I publish a book, it's not a bestseller, I still can pay my bills. That also means that I'm not writing full time in the sense that I can write every day. I have certain days allocated to the jobs my part-time jobs. I'm a professor at university in Holland, and I'm also a commissioner for the Dutch Human Rights Institute. Both of these jobs are part-time, and I allocate 2 days, and when I'm teaching it's more, in order to do those jobs. 2 days spread out over the week, and that means that I'm not writing full time, but I also feel it's really important, for me at least, that I don't put pressure on my writing in terms of earning money with it, because like I said, very, very few writers can earn money, enough money, with their writing. And it's it's not a full-time profession, like I said, and you have to find a way of incorporating your writing. And I know people who are early birds, like I'm not, and they just get up at 6 instead of 6:30, and they write for half an hour each day. And that doesn't sound like much, but even if it's only one sentence or two sentences, if you do that every day, it will accumulate. So I find the question not that easy to answer, because it gives the impression that at some point you can really just earn money with your books. And I've published 7 books, and number 8 will come out soon. It's a fiction, my new novel. I will leave the pretty Dutch cover here. I wrote it in English, but my house publisher is a Dutch publisher, so it had been translated into Dutch, and it will be published in Dutch first and then hopefully be sold to other countries. So even if you don't write full time, if it's not the occupation, your full-time occupation, you can still write a couple of books, and I guess there is almost no writer who just has nothing else to do than writing. So that shouldn't prevent you from writing books. And the new book I'm working on is a non-fiction book, and that is at the stage, like I talked about earlier, that I'm not quite sure. I've been working on this book for more than a year, and I'm giving it one last chance now, in order to decide whether it's a dead horse or whether I just have to push through. So you never know. Anyway, it's already much too long ramblings about my own writing. I hope you found that interesting. I don't know, if you want to write yourself, you might find it more interesting. Let me know in the comments whether you do NaNoWriMo or whether you write for yourself, and how that is for you. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're all still safe and healthy, and I'll talk to you all soon in the next one.